Selena Carter had everything a 20-year-old girl could want. Her father owned 3 successful restaurants in their small Georgia town. Her mother was the head of the local charity committee. Their big white house sat on the hill where all the wealthy families lived. Selena drove a red sports car to college and wore designer clothes that made other girls jealous. But despite all her blessings, she felt empty inside, like something important was missing from her perfect life. She was studying business at the local college, but her heart wasn't in it. Every day felt the same until that Tuesday morning in September, when she walked into the library and saw him sitting alone at a corner table surrounded by engineering books and calculator sheets. His name was Darius King, and he was the most beautiful person she had ever seen, not because of his looks, but because of the gentle way he helped an elderly librarian reach a high shelf, and the patient smile he gave to a struggling freshman who asked for help with math. When their eyes met across the library, something magical happened that neither of them could explain. It was like the whole world stopped spinning just for them. Their first conversation happened by accident when Selena dropped her books near his table. Darius jumped up to help her gather the scattered papers, and their hands touched briefly when they both reached for the same notebook. "I'm sorry," he said with a warm smile that made her heart skip. "I'm Darius." She felt nervous in a way she had never experienced before as she replied, "I'm Selena, and you don't need to be sorry for being kind." They talked for 3 hours that day about dreams and fears and favorite movies and childhood memories. Darius told her how he grew up in a small apartment with his grandmother, who worked 2 jobs to help him get to college. He wanted to become an engineer to build bridges that would connect communities and bring people together. Selena found herself sharing things she had never told anyone about feeling trapped in her perfect life and wanting to make a real difference in the world. When they finally looked up, the library was nearly empty and the sun was setting outside the tall windows. "Would you like to get some coffee tomorrow?" Darius asked hopefully. Selena felt her heart soar as she said yes, knowing somehow that this was the beginning of something wonderful and life-changing. For 3 beautiful weeks they met secretly every day. They would study together in quiet corners of the campus and take long walks through the woods behind the college, where no one could see them. Darius made Selena laugh harder than she ever had before with his silly jokes and thoughtful observations about life. He listened to her dreams of opening a community center for underprivileged children and encouraged her to change her major from business to social work. Selena discovered that Darius was not only incredibly smart, but also deeply kind and generous. He tutored struggling students for free and sent half of his part-time job money to his grandmother every month. When she was with him, she felt like the best version of herself, like she could accomplish anything and help everyone. Their first kiss happened under the big oak tree by the pond where they had been reading poetry to each other. It was soft and sweet and filled with the promise of a love that felt bigger than both of them. "I think I'm falling in love with you," Selena whispered against his lips. "I know I'm falling in love with you," he whispered back, holding her close as if she might disappear. Neither of them realized that their secret meetings had been noticed by others, and that their beautiful bubble of happiness was about to burst in the cruelest way possible. The whispers started on a Monday morning when Selena's roommate Jessica saw them holding hands near the student center. By lunchtime, the gossip had spread through their social circle like wildfire. "Did you see Selena with that black guy?" her friend Madison whispered loudly enough for others to hear. "I can't believe she would lower herself like that." When Selena walked into the cafeteria that afternoon, the conversation stopped and heads turned to stare at her with looks of shock and disapproval. Her longtime friend group sat at their usual table, but when she approached, they suddenly became very interested in their food. "Selena, we need to talk," said her best friend Emma, pulling her aside with a serious expression. "People are saying you're dating Darius King, and I really hope it's not true, because you know how people feel about mixed relationships around here." Selena felt her face grow hot with anger and embarrassment. What people think doesn't matter when you love someone, she said firmly, but Emma shook her head. It matters more than you realize, and if you keep this up, you'll ruin your reputation, and your family's reputation too. That night Selena cried herself to sleep, wondering why something so beautiful and pure had to be seen as something wrong and shameful by the people she thought cared about her. Darius was facing his own battles on the other side of campus. His engineering classmates, who had always been friendly, suddenly became cold and distant. During group projects, they would exclude him from discussions and make him feel invisible. In the hallways, he heard whispers and saw pointing fingers. One afternoon after his thermodynamics class, a group of white students cornered him near the parking lot. "We heard you're dating Selena Carter," said their leader, a tall boy named Brad with mean eyes. "You need to understand something, boy. She's not for someone like you." Darius felt his hands shake with anger, but he kept his voice calm and steady. "Someone like me, you mean someone who treats her with respect and kindness." Brad laughed cruelly and stepped closer. "Don't get smart with us, you know exactly what we mean. And if you don't back off, you'll be sorry." That night Darius sat in his small dorm room staring at a picture of him and Selena laughing together, and wondered if their love was worth all this pain and hatred. He had faced racism before, but this felt different because now it wasn't just about him, it was about someone he loved more than his own life. The thought of Selena getting hurt because of him made his heart break into 1,000 pieces. The confrontation with Selena's parents came sooner than expected when her mother, Margaret Carter, showed up, unannounced at her dorm room on a Thursday evening. Margaret's face was tight with anger and disappointment as she pushed past Selena into the small room. "I heard the most disturbing rumors about you today, and I need to know if they're true," she said with ice in her voice. Selena felt her stomach drop, but she lifted her chin with determination. "If you're asking about Darius, then yes, I'm dating him, and yes, I love him." Margaret gasped and sank into the desk chair as if someone had struck her. "How could you do this to our family, Selena? We have a reputation to maintain, and your father has business, relationships that could be ruined if people think we approve of this nonsense." The words hit Selena like physical blows, and she felt tears burning behind her eyes. "It's not nonsense, Mom, it's love, and I thought you raised me to judge people by their character, not their skin color." Margaret stood up abruptly and grabbed her purse. "You will end this relationship immediately, or your father and I will cut off all financial support, and you can forget about coming home for holidays or family events." As the door slammed behind her mother, Selena collapsed on her bed and sobbed until her pillow was soaked with tears, wondering how the people who were supposed to love her unconditionally could be so cruel and closed-minded. That weekend brought the most difficult conversation of their relationship when Darius and Selena met at their favorite spot by the Zavat pond to talk about everything that had happened. The autumn leaves were falling around them like tears from the sky, and the air was heavy with the weight of their shared pain. "Maybe we should take a break," Darius said quietly, unable to meet her eyes. "I can't stand the thought of you losing your family because of me, and I hate seeing you hurt because people can't accept us." Selena grabbed his hands and held them tightly against her chest. "Don't you dare give up on us now when we need each other the most," she said with fierce determination. "I don't care about money or family approval or what people think, because none of that matters without you in my life." Darius looked up at her with tears in his dark eyes and saw strength there that took his breath away. "Are you sure? Because once we make this choice, there's no going back, and things might get worse before they get better." Selena kissed him softly and whispered, "I've never been more sure of anything in my entire life, because love this real and this pure is worth fighting for." They held each other under the oak tree, making a silent promise to face whatever came next together as a team united against a world that wanted to tear them apart. The plan to go public came to Selena in a flash of inspiration during her sociology class when the professor was talking about social movements and the power of peaceful protest. The annual campus diversity celebration was coming up in 2 weeks, and it would be the perfect opportunity to make a statement about their love and their right to be together. She shared the idea with Darius that evening and watched his face carefully as he considered the implications. "It's going to be like walking into a lion's den," he said thoughtfully. "Everyone will be watching and judging, and some people might get really angry." Selena nodded, understanding the risks but feeling more determined than ever. "Then let them watch and judge, because we'll show them what real love looks like, and maybe we'll inspire other couples who are hiding in the shadows to be brave too." Darius smiled for the first time in days and pulled her into his arms. "If we're going to do this, we need to do it right, with dignity and grace. No matter how people react." They spent the next week preparing themselves, mentally and emotionally, for what would either be their greatest triumph or their most painful defeat. They practiced walking together with their heads held high and their love shining bright enough to blind the haters and illuminate the path for others who believed in the power of love to conquer hate. The night before the diversity celebration, Selena couldn't sleep as her mind raced with possibilities and fears. She thought about her parents who hadn't spoken to her since that terrible confrontation, and wondered if she would ever see them again. She thought about her old friends who now treated her like a stranger, and felt a deep sadness for the relationship she had lost. But then she thought about Darius and the way he made her feel complete and whole and purposeful, and she knew that every sacrifice was worth it. Meanwhile, Darius was lying awake in his dorm room, thinking about his grandmother who had always taught him to stand up for what was right, even when it was difficult. She had called him earlier that week to offer her support and blessing. "Baby," she had said in her gentle voice that still carried traces of Alabama, "love is the most powerful force in this universe, and when you find the real thing, you hold on to it tight and don't let anyone tell you it's wrong." Her words gave him courage and strength as he prepared to face the biggest challenge of his young life. As the sun rose on the day that would change everything, both Selena and Darius knew there was no turning back, and they were ready to show the world that love sees no color, only the beauty of two souls choosing each other against all odds. The campus was buzzing with excitement as students and faculty gathered for the diversity celebration in the main quad. Colorful banners hung from the trees, and tables were set up with food from different cultures around the world. There was music and laughter, and the kind of positive energy that made everyone feel hopeful about the future. Selena spent extra time getting ready that morning, choosing a simple white dress that made her feel confident and beautiful. Darius wore his best shirt and tie, looking handsome and dignified as they met at the edge of the quad, where the celebration was already in full swing. "Ready?" he asked, taking her hand in his and feeling her fingers tremble slightly. "Ready," she replied, squeezing his hand and drawing strength from his calm presence. As they stepped into the crowded area, hand in hand, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, and heads turned to stare at them with expressions ranging from shock to anger to curiosity. Some people smiled and nodded their approval, but many others whispered behind their hands and shook their heads in disapproval. Selena felt her heart pounding so hard, she was sure everyone could hear it, but she kept walking with Darius toward the main stage where the program was about to begin. The crowd seemed to part before them like the Red Sea as they made their way through the festival. Some students they passed offered encouraging smiles and thumbs-up signs, but others glared with open hostility and made rude comments just loud enough for them to hear. "Look at them," someone whispered loudly. "They think they're making some kind of statement," another voice added. "It's just a phase, she'll come to her senses soon enough." But for every negative comment, there was also someone who looked at them with respect and admiration. A young Hispanic couple nodded their approval, and an elderly black professor touched his heart and smiled at them with tears in his eyes. As they found seats near the front of the audience, Selena noticed that people were still staring and pointing. she also saw something else. There were other mixed-race couples in the crowd who had been hiding their relationships, but now stood a little taller and held hands a little tighter because Selena and Darius had given them permission to be proud of their love too. The ripple effect of their courage was already beginning to spread and change hearts and minds in ways they never could have imagined. The program began with speeches about tolerance and acceptance, but Selena barely heard the words because her mind was focused on the moment that was coming, when she would have to stand up and speak her truth to the world. The moment that changed everything came when Dr. Patricia Williams, the event coordinator, called Selena's name to come to the stage for a presentation she had prepared about community service. Selena's legs felt like rubber as she stood up and walked toward the microphone with hundreds of eyes following her every step. She had prepared a speech about volunteer work at the local food bank, but as she looked out at the sea of faces both friendly and hostile, she knew she had to speak from her heart instead. "Good afternoon, everyone," she began with a voice that was stronger than she felt. "I was supposed to talk about community service today, but I think there's something more important that needs to be said." The crowd grew completely silent, as if everyone was holding their breath waiting for her next words. "3 months ago, I met the most wonderful person in the world, and I fell in love with his kindness, his intelligence, his dreams, and his beautiful heart." She paused and looked directly at Darius, who was watching her with pride and love shining in his eyes. "Some people have told me that I shouldn't love him because his skin is different from mine, but I want you all to know something important about love." Her voice grew stronger and more passionate as she continued. "Love doesn't see color or social class or family names. It only sees the beauty of two hearts choosing to beat together as one." The silence that followed her words was so complete that you could hear the wind rustling through the autumn leaves. Then slowly, like sunrise breaking over the horizon, applause began to ripple through the crowd, starting with a few brave souls and spreading until the entire audience was on their feet, cheering and clapping. Tears streamed down Selena's face as she looked out at the sea of support and saw that her words had touched something deep in people's hearts. Even some of the people who had been hostile earlier were applauding, although reluctantly, and she could see that minds were beginning to change. She gestured for Darius to join her on the stage, and when he reached her side and took her hand, the applause grew even louder. "This is Darius King," she said into the microphone with her voice full of pride and love. "He's studying to become an engineer so he can build bridges that connect communities and bring people together, and that's exactly what he's done for me." Darius stepped forward to the microphone with tears in his own eyes and said, "Thank you all for showing us that love really can overcome hate when good people choose to stand up and support each other." The standing ovation that followed seemed to last forever, and when it finally ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the entire quad. The celebration continued, but now it felt different, lighter and more hopeful, as if something beautiful and important had just been born. In the days that followed their public declaration, the campus seemed to transform around them. The story of their brave stand spread quickly through social media and local news outlets, bringing both praise and criticism from the wider community. Some people sent hate mail and made threatening phone calls, but many more reached out with messages of support and encouragement. Students who had never spoken to them before stopped them on campus to say thank you for their courage. Professor Johnson from the sociology department invited them to speak to his class about overcoming prejudice, and Dr. Williams asked them to help plan next year's diversity celebration. Most importantly, other couples who had been hiding their relationships began to come forward and live their truth openly. Maria Santos and David Kim held hands in the cafeteria for the first time. Ashley Williams and Ahmed Hassan sat together in the library without fear. The ripple effect of Selena and Darius's courage continued to spread, creating a more accepting and loving environment for everyone. But the greatest change was still to come when Selena received an unexpected phone call from her mother on a quiet Sunday evening 3 weeks after the celebration. Margaret's voice was soft and different from the angry tone she had used during their last conversation. "Selena, honey, I've been watching the news coverage about your speech, and I want you to know how proud I am of your courage," she said with tears in her voice. The conversation with her mother was awkward at first, as they both struggled to find the right words after weeks of painful silence. Margaret admitted that she and Selena's father had been raised in a different time when interracial relationships were not accepted, and they had let fear and old prejudices cloud their judgment. "I realize now that I was more concerned about what our friends and neighbors would think than about your happiness," she said with shame in her voice. "That was wrong, and I'm sorry for hurting you and for not trusting you to make good choices about your own life." Selena felt a huge weight lift off her shoulders as she listened to her mother's apology. "I want to meet him," Margaret continued. "I want to meet this young man who makes my daughter so happy and who has the courage to stand up for love in the face of hatred." The meeting was arranged for the following weekend at a small restaurant downtown, where they could have privacy and talk without interruption. Selena was nervous about how it would go, but Darius was calm and confident as always. "Just be yourself," she told him as they walked into the restaurant. "That's all I ever want to be," he replied with that gentle smile that had first captured her heart. Margaret and Robert Carter were waiting at a corner table, looking nervous but determined to make things right with their daughter. The initial moments were tense and uncomfortable, but Darius's natural warmth and genuine respect for Selena's parents gradually broke down the barriers that prejudice had built. Over dinner, Darius talked about his dreams of becoming an engineer and his plans to use his degree to help disadvantaged communities. He spoke lovingly about his grandmother who had raised him and instilled in him strong values of hard work and integrity. He answered Robert's questions about his grades and career goals with intelligence and maturity that impressed both parents. Most importantly, he talked about how much he loved Selena and how committed he was to treating her with respect and making her happy. "I know you don't have any reason to trust me yet," he said, looking directly at Margaret and Robert. "But I want you to know that your daughter is the most important person in my world, and I would never do anything to hurt her or dishonor your family." By the end of the evening, both parents were smiling and laughing at his stories and asking him questions about his studies and his grandmother. Margaret even invited him to join them for Thanksgiving dinner, saying, "Any young man who can make our Selena this happy deserves a place at our family table." As they said goodbye in the restaurant parking lot, Robert shook Darius's hand firmly and said, "I owe you an apology, son, and I hope you can forgive an old man for letting fear make him foolish." The healing had begun, and while it would take time to fully repair the damage that had been done, the foundation of love and respect was now in place. Selena hugged her parents tightly, feeling grateful that they had found the courage to open their hearts and minds to change. 6 months later, as spring flowers bloomed across the campus, Selena and Darius had become something of a legend among the student body. Their love story was told and retold, inspiring countless others to be brave in their own relationships and to stand up against prejudice wherever they found it. They had started a campus organization called Bridges of Love that brought together couples from different backgrounds to support each other and educate the community about acceptance and tolerance. Every month, they held workshops and discussion groups that were attended by students, faculty, and community members who wanted to learn how to overcome their own biases and build a more inclusive society. The organization had grown from just the two of them to over 200 members representing every possible combination of race, religion, and culture. Local churches had begun inviting them to speak about love and acceptance, and the mayor had declared their story an inspiration to the entire town. But beyond all the public recognition and praise, the most important thing was that they had stayed true to their love and to each other despite every obstacle and challenge they had faced. Their relationship had grown stronger through adversity, and they had proven that love really could conquer hate when it was backed by courage, determination, and an unwavering commitment to doing what was right. As their second anniversary approached, Darius had been secretly planning something special to show Selena how much their journey together meant to him. He had been working extra hours at his part-time job to save money for a simple but beautiful ring that would symbolize their commitment to each other and to the cause they had championed together. On a warm evening in May, he took her back to their special place by the pond under the oak tree, where they had shared their first kiss and where they had made their promise to stand together against the world. The tree was now covered with fresh green leaves, and the pond reflected the colors of the sunset like a mirror made of liquid gold. "Selena," he said, taking her hands in his just as he had done so many times before. 2 years ago, we made a choice to love each other despite what anyone else thought, and that choice changed both of our lives in ways we never could have imagined." She looked into his eyes, knowing that something important was happening, but not daring to guess what it might be. "You taught me that love is not just a feeling, but a decision we make every day to choose each other and to fight for what we believe in." He dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box that contained a simple diamond ring that sparkled in the fading light. "Will you marry me and continue this beautiful journey together for the rest of our lives?" Through happy tears, Selena said yes, knowing that this was exactly how their love story was meant to continue. The engagement ring was modest, but it represented something far more valuable than money could buy. It represented two people who had faced hatred with love, ignorance with education, and fear with courage. As they kissed under the oak tree that had witnessed the beginning of their romance, they both knew that their greatest adventures were still ahead of them. The wedding 6 months later was a celebration that brought together people from all walks of life, united in their support for a couple who had shown them that love knows no boundaries. Selena's parents walked her down the aisle with pride and joy, replacing the shame and anger they had once felt. Darius's grandmother flew in from Alabama, wearing her best dress and tears of happiness streaming down her weathered face. The ceremony was performed by Dr. Williams, who had become not just their friend, but also their mentor in the work of building bridges between communities. As they exchanged vows promising to love and cherish each other through all of life's challenges, the audience of family and friends represented a rainbow of faces and cultures, all united in celebration of love's triumph over hatred. The reception featured food from every culture represented in their Bridges of Love organization, and the dancing went on late into the night, with people of all backgrounds celebrating together in perfect harmony. Today, 5 years later, Darius and Selena King continue to inspire others through their example of what love can accomplish when it refuses to be limited by society's expectations. Darius graduated summa cum laude with his engineering degree and now works for a firm that specializes in building infrastructure in underserved communities, bringing clean water and reliable power to places that have been forgotten by the world. Selena completed her degree in social work and runs a nonprofit organization that provides educational scholarships to students from mixed-race families who face discrimination in their pursuit of higher education. Their Bridges of Love organization has expanded to 5 different college campuses and has helped dozens of couples find the courage to live their truth openly and proudly. They have been invited to speak at conferences and universities across the country, sharing their story and teaching others how to overcome prejudice through understanding and dialogue. But their greatest achievement is not the awards they have won or the recognition they have received. Their greatest achievement is the quiet revolution they started that continues to spread one heart at a time, changing the world through this simple but powerful message that love sees no color, only the beauty of two souls choosing each other. Their story proves that sometimes the greatest protests are not made with signs and slogans, but with the simple act of holding hands and refusing to let go, even when the Whole world tells you to let go because real love backed by real courage will always find a way to overcome real hatred and build a better world for everyone. And so, as the seasons kept turning and the oak by the pond stretched a little taller into the sky, Darius and Selena learned that the real test of love isn't the moment you fall, it's every ordinary morning after, when you choose each other again. They learned that change rarely arrives with fireworks. It creeps in through small, stubborn acts of goodness, the way he checked the structural plans for a clinic twice so a village could have safe, clean water, the way she stayed late to help a shy first-gen student finish a scholarship essay, the way they still held hands walking across campus when they returned as guest speakers and saw nervous couples in the crowd sit a little closer. They learned that families can grow braver, that apologies can plant gardens where only concrete once stood, and that the world is less a wall and more a door when enough people decide to turn the handle. On quiet nights, they told each other the truth, that fear had nearly stolen what became their life's work, that kindness is heavier to lift than cruelty, but worth every muscle, and that courage isn't loud until it's shared. They kept sharing it. The bridges of love meetings spread beyond campuses to community centers and living rooms. Mothers brought children, grandparents brought old photographs, and students brought questions they had been afraid to say out loud. Letters arrived, some hateful but more of them hopeful, describing kitchen table reconciliations, cafeteria handholds, and first holidays spent together without the old rules. When storms came, because storms always come, they returned to the oak and named what hurt, then named what healed. His grandmother's voicemail, quoting a line of scripture about perfect love casting out fear, her father's steady hug before a keynote, their own promise to keep listening when it would be easier to win an argument than win a heart. They forgave themselves for the days they felt tired and answered those days with rest, laughter, and the kind of ordinary joy that never makes headlines but remakes lives. They didn't call themselves heroes. They called themselves students of each other, of history, of the future they wanted to build. And when their daughter asked, years later, why people had ever cared about skin more than kindness, they didn't hide the ugliness. They showed her the ledger of love's daily deposits and told her to keep the account growing. If you felt even a spark of that truth in their story, help us carry it further. Tap like so more people see it. Subscribe for more powerful real-world love stories that stand up to prejudice. And turn on the notification bell so you never miss a chapter. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that every hand held in public is a quiet revolution. And drop a comment about the moment that moved you most. Your words might be the bridge someone else needs to take their first brave step.